Supporters of Labour Party presidential candidate, popularly known as Obedience, are on a rampage on social media. The target of their tirade is none other than the person of Professor Charles Soludo, governor of Anambra State. Professor Soludo, during a TV interview, had stated that Peter Obi did not achieve much when he was governor of Anambra State. In Governor Soludo's words, quote, Peter Obi's investment in Anambra is next to nothing. The governor also added that Mr. Obi will not win the presidential election since that interview, he has been receiving heavy tongue lashing from Obedience on and off social media. Reacting to these developments, Apex Igbo Social-Cultural Organization, Ohanes and Igbo, has slammed Governor Soludo over his statement. The group says Governor Soludo is jealous of Mr. Obi and only attacking him because of his own presidential ambition. But joining us via Zoom is the spokesperson of the Obi Dati Presidential Campaign Organization, Ndikato. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Yes, I can. Good morning.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And also joining us from our Abuja studio is public affairs analyst Biodun Shoumi. Mr. Shoumi, good morning. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning.
All right. Let me begin with you, Ndikato. We know that your principal has responded to the statement made by the Anambra State governor, talking about the fact that he, Peter Obi, is a trader and has done his bit, and it's time now for the professor to do his bit. But what were your impressions when you saw that statement coming from the Anambra State governor?
I consider it a distraction. It is a forced attempt at generating, conflict that is just falling flat on its face. It is a distraction. This is a man who rode on Peter Obi's achievements into office. All through the debates, it was Peter Obi's achievements he was calling out as reasons why, the party and his structure should be trusted going into the governorship campaign. All of that he put out even after he entered into office. So the question is, what has changed, right? I don't see this as something that we should be dwelling so much on. My principal, Peter Obi, has so much to run on for president. He's putting so much on the table. He has talked about his intentions for Nigerians, and that is going to be our focus. For this is forced. It is an attempt at distracting us, and if we pay much attention to it, as the media seems to be doing, we'll be going back and forth on something that has absolutely no reach, absolutely no impact on the election at hand.
All right, let me come to Biodun, let me come to you here. It is assumed every time, like they say, the idiom that charity begins at home, and we're talking about Anambra State, where it's the home state of Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party. And one would assume, as much as he's not in the same political party with the incumbent governor, but one would assume that because of the affiliations, or the fact that, okay, we come from the same place, one way or the other, they should speak the same language when it comes to supporting each other to achieve the goal of Peter Obi, but this doesn't seem to be the case. What do you think is going on?
Well, I think what is going on is very healthy in a democracy. We're in a process of trying to choose who should be our president to govern the affairs of this country for the next 4 years. And therefore, it is quite very important to look exactly at each of the contestants. Many of the contestants have put up so many claims about what they have done in the past, about their competency, their track record. And therefore, it is very important to examine exactly the track records of those who are out in the race. That is exactly what Soludo has tried to contribute to. He made his own contribution in terms of x-raying what some of Peter Obi's claims, and then juxtapose that with the current state of affairs, the worth of the investment in Anambra State. So basically, more or less saying that Obi's track record is questionable, and not only that, his decision to invest in a sector that the value of the money in shares can go up and down, rather than investing in infrastructure for Anambra State, is suspect. So basically, those are what Soludo is saying, and those are very important parts, of what people need to consider in deciding who to vote for. You talk about vision, you look at people's competency, track record, what have they done, how has it benefited society. So for me, Soludo's intervention is totally welcome, contrary to what my colleague thought, that it's a distraction. It's not a distraction. It's part of the ongoing debate. We have people talking about Atiku, talking about Tinubu, asking questions day and night. So those cannot be distractions. They are issues for the public, and they need to be responded to appropriately.
Right. Ndekato, perhaps you might want to react to the statement coming from Abiodun Shomi saying that this is necessary for our democracy and a critical time such as this, and that it's not a distraction. Ndekato, are you there? Can you hear me? All right, I hear Ndekato is not available as we speak. But then, Mr. Shomi, so are you saying that the statement or the frenzy, the kind of reaction we're getting from the statement Mr. Soludo made is actually we just looking at the messenger and not critically paying attention to the message?
Oh yes. If you see a lot of emotional reactions to what Soludo said, quite from reacting rather than attacking Soludo, rather than looking at exactly the message Soludo is making. He's trying to communicate. Which is quite unfortunate, but it's not unusual, though. When you look at the country we live in, there are so many spin doctors trying to get people to focus on less important things or not to talk about important things, and therefore it's expected. But what is not expected is the intervention of Ohanaeze Indigo. That I am surprised. To heavily weigh against Soludo in the manner the Secretary General of Ohanaeze did is totally shocking, unexpected. The reason is this. Justice Peter Obi of Abga is also an Igbo, is from Igbo extraction. He is of Abga. Soludo is of the same Abga party. It is almost inconceivable that if a sociocultural organization like Ohanaeze Indigo would make an intervention, that intervention, will be done in the way and manner they're doing it currently. They forget the fact that Emeka Ojukwu formed ABGA, and ABGA is meant to be a provincial party. And the retired chief judge of Anambra State, Philip Umiadi, is the presidential candidate of ABGA. Why would they expect Soludo, to back Obi or any other candidate from the Southeast against their own party candidate? That is totally unreasonable. And we cannot, because of that, now decide to politically assassinate Soludo, threatening him that he won't go for a second term, they will mobilize against him. That's totally unacceptable. Ohanaeze went as far as saying that they will support the House of Assembly move to impeach him. Impeach him for what? For actually saying the truth. It's laughable. These are some of the things which should not be happening in my country, but we have to deal with them.
All right, let's, I don't know if Ndekato is back online. We lost her line earlier on. Ndekato, are you there? All right, I guess we'll certainly have her back as we get along. Now, the issue of Biodun, let me stay with you on this because you mentioned Ohaneze Ndigbo. A lot of persons, in fact, on the papers today, one of the papers today mentioned, in fact, one of the quotes there, the headline there says Ohaneze, the gods must settle this. They had taken, they're taking this issue to some of the deities, the Igbo deities, to handle. Now, we understand the place of Ohaneze Ndigbo, where it looks like the umbrella body for all Igbo sons and daughters around the world. And taking sides, one would say, well, you're supposed to see Peter Obi as your son, as much as Soludo as your son, as much as any other person who is from the Igbo extraction. But this may not be the case right now. But how else would you have expected Ohaneze Ndigbo to handle this, especially when it comes to politics that we're looking at right now, not a social-cultural issue that affects the Igbo people or like security or economy or anything, but this is politics. What stand would you expect the Ohaneze Ndigbo to have taken?
Honestly, any social-cultural group like Ohaneze, Afenifere, ideally should maintain a neutral position, particularly when you have more than one of your sons or daughters in a particular race. You cannot afford to take sides against one, favor one against the other. That is not right. It's not the appropriate thing to do. One would have expected Ohaneze Ndigbo, knowing that a very distinguished son of Anambra, who happens to be the former chief judge of Anambra, Peter Obi, retired. It's actually the presidential candidate of ABGA. One would have expected at least Ohaneze Ndigbo to be a bit circumspect on this issue and be very careful about pitching their tent against one of their own sons. No matter how you look at it, Peter Obi and Peter Obi are both from Anambra State. And at the end of the day, people would have to vote one way or the other. Soludo is with Peter Obi, and Obi also is a former governor of that state. So the people will vote one way or the other. And where will that leave Ohaneze Ndigbo in this matter? Caught, dividing the people. That is not a nice situation to be. I'm sure the Secretary General will reflect after today about their intervention, the threat to calling the deities. You're calling the deities, will the deities reject Peter Obi, who is the brother of Philip Obi, the former vice presidential candidate of UPN, who contested with Awolowo? Will the deities reject their own son? So that is what is quite amusing in the whole matter. Invoking the deities, inviting the deities, or inviting spirits will not resolve the matter in favor of anybody. Because Soludo is correct, Soludo is right to back the presidential candidate of his own party, who is also from Anambra State and a retired chief judge of Anambra State. If Obi felt he needed Soludo's backing, he would have moved back to ABGA, and then contested for the primaries, in ABGA. He chose to go to another party, Labour Party. So why the emotional outburst of Ohaneze against Soludo? I don't understand that. Nobody is even talking about Justice Peter Obi in this matter, who is actually the contestant against Obi, or condemning Soludo. That is totally unacceptable. And I think they will reflect on this and moderate their position.
Right. Let's look at one critical aspect that Mr. Soludo pointed out. He drew inferences from the person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, how he had to align with the North and also, to get some level of impact and also get what it is the Southwest needed. And he now emerging as the presidential candidate of the APC and all of that. And if you look at the Indigbos have been speaking about they being marginalized, so to speak. And, you know, Soludo spoke to the fact that if they have to achieve that, they will have to align to get what they want and negotiate for what they want. Since 1999 till now, one will wonder why it is so challenging for the Indigbo to have that figure that can, you know, galvanize the needed support for the Indigbos and perhaps negotiate what the Indigbos truly desire.
Yes, you know, this when you look at this issue of equity, when people argue, like many people, including Chief Adebanjo, when they bring up the issue of equity since 1999, it is only the Southeast, you know, that has been marginalized, and because of that, we whip up so much emotions around it. But I keep asking myself one question. Did the history of Nigeria commence in 1999 or 1960? The history of our country, you know, actually started in 1960. That was when we gained independence. And rather than 1960, if you look at it from 1960, you will realize that the seat of power has been occupied 3 times by the Southeast, 3 times by the Southwest, and only once by the South-South. So when you look at the issue of equity, equity has been satisfied. What has not been satisfied is equality of opportunities. And if you raise the issue of equality of opportunities, you can only say it's South-South. South-South is the one that can claim to be marginalized because they've only had the opportunity of being in political power, you know, at the helms of affairs only once, and that was Jonathan. So what the problem we have is equality of opportunities, and is not the issue of equity. So those who are raising the issue of equity, preferably, you know, they prefer to look at Nigeria's history from 1999, our political history from 1999. That's not correct. Our political history actually started from 1960. So, and that is where we should be taking it. But notwithstanding that, that does not mean that Indigo should not have access or to the seat of power. No, nobody's saying that. It should be competitive like what we have now. I would never want to live in a country where one ethnic group or the other is being marginalized. What we should be doing is look at exactly what are the problems Indigo is facing. Soludo is absolutely correct to talk about how, you know, the Tinubu engaged, you know, led the Yorubas to engage with other zones within the country, you know, in terms of negotiating power and finding themselves where they are today. And is asking the Indigos to borrow a leaf from that. You cannot exist in isolation. What we need to do is the Indigos need to engage, you know, with other ethnic groups in each zone with a view, you know, to get a buy-in for the whole presidency. Without doing that, it is almost impossible. It's just like the game which Obi is playing currently. It is almost impossible, you know, without the buy-in of other sectors of the country, and you expect to be the next president. If you look at how many representations do they have? In Ogun State, they don't even have a gubernatorial candidate. In Lagos, they don't have any candidate for Senate or House of Reps and all. And it's the same story in many parts of the country. So if you don't engage with the local people, engage with the political leaders in other parts of the country, you will not be able to achieve what the Yoruba seems to have achieved under the leadership of Tinubu. That is, we engage, you know, engage with different zones within the country. I think that is what Soludo is trying to encourage Indigo to do, that it is time to start engaging, you know, with other people who sharing the same geographical space called Nigeria, rather than withdrawing to our cocoon, getting highly emotional and getting very angry that Indigbos are not having equal access to political power.
But if you want to look at it critically, what would you say perhaps has been the limitation for them not engaging these other zones? Is it that they haven't had that figure, that leader that, you know, could galvanize and have, you know, that conversation with other zones like we saw in other leaders? You talk about our history being from 1960. We had the Nnamdi Azikiwe, and we saw how he engaged with other zones. Is that really the issue, the challenge with the situation with the Indigbos as we speak?
Yes. If you actually consider the strategy being adopted, you realize that the focus is not on the political class within the other zones. Indigbo has been focusing on the socio-cultural groups of other zones. For instance, the relationship with Pandef, you know, that's what that's about. The same thing, the relationship with Afenifere, that is what that is about. It's not about negotiating power. It's about a demand for a different thing completely. The unity between Afenifere, Pandef, and Ohaneze is about restructuring. It has nothing to do with political, one way or the other, or the political arrangement in the country. So this has never been in favor of Indigbo. What Indigbo needs to do is to actually engage with the political actors in different parts of the country. That is the critical issue. If you don't engage with the political actors in each of the zones, they will still find it a bit difficult, you know, to achieve that goal. But it is not insurmountable, and it is never too late. Is what can be done. They need to go back to the drawing table with a view to
Biano, are you there? I guess the
network challenge.
Signals from the you know, the lines generally. Yeah, but he made a point, and in fact the point of alignment, because political alignment is quite apt, because if you look at the history from the 50s into the 60s, when we're preparing, you know, in the build-up to Nigeria's independence, you know, the roles of people like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Sam Bakwe, Michael Okpara, and the others, leaders from the southeast. The issue of alignment happened at that time. Alignment was so, in fact, the southeast was so critical, powerful and so influential in the elections that they had to come into an alignment with the NPC, the Northern People's Congress at the time, because Nnamdi Azikiwe was of the NCNC at that time, and that alignment was what helped them create the government, because we were under the parliamentary system of government that time against the Action Group, and the Action Group led by Chief Obafemi Awolowo became the official opposition. And that was because, in real terms, from the records, from the reports we read, it was because NCNC had one majority at the parliament. So it was now left to the NCNC, okay, who do you want to align with? And they decided to align with the NPC at the time. So that kind of alignment had worked before. Whether they took it up and continued is totally a different thing. But basically, if you compare the Southeast to the other regions, where there is a political figurehead, helps in the direction,
that is
in the
missing.
course, exactly, in charting a certain course of where should we all go to and what should be the basis and all of that. Well, one would also think that maybe also the sociocultural temperaments of the people sometimes also permeate into politics. Recall that in the North, there's this perfect cohesion of the sociocultural people there, where when a leader generally speaks, every
and
other
this is
person...
our direction.
Exactly.
Everybody falls in line.
Very good. And it permeates into politics. In the Southwest, it is the same thing. It is semi, but it's also the same thing. But it's a little loose in the Southwest than in the North.
Yes.
Then in the Southeast, they have a total egalitarian system where, even in the villages, there wasn't a king necessarily.
Yeah.
It was just village heads and then family heads, and as the case may be. Also, title holders at that time were the ones who wielded a lot of influence here and there. So that is why now, apart from one or two kings in the Southeast that is referred to, you don't have that kind of a king, in that context.
That figure.
So all that permeates into politics. And the moment you don't have that figure, then sometimes you negotiate in your own terms, I negotiate in my own terms, or I negotiate on my own terms. Everybody negotiates on their own terms.
Then your influence now begins to speak.
Which will down, exactly. And that's what the thing is. So we have more of prominent politicians than somebody that will be seen as the leader of the Southeast, as the case may be.
All right.
So all of these things are there. But is it a bad situation? I don't think it's a bad situation. Or it's not a good, bad situation. It's just a peculiar situation.
Which they need to look into.
Yeah, exactly. Or how to wield it better, as the case may be.
All right, we'll have to leave the conversation here, but we were speaking earlier with our public affairs analyst, Biodun Showemi, on developments between the Anambra State Governor, Charles Chukwuma Soludo, and the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi. We'll see how events pan out in the coming days.